Greetings, fellow foodie fire fiends, and welcome back to the Pit Wizard Smoke Shack. Now, as outdoor cooking enthusiasts, we've cooked a fair few burgers in our time and sampled a fair few more, from copies of famous burger chains, through to smash burgers, through to juicy looses, and everything in between. We thought we'd seen it all. But today, we're going to be trying a burger that's blowing up the internet at the moment. It's gone viral, sounds delicious, and it goes by the name of the Crack Burger. I can only assume it's been given that name because there's a lot of ingredients that go into this burger that make the meat prone to cracking while you're grilling. That's surely the reason, right? And nothing to do with how addictive they might be at all. So, let's move on. On our bench here, we've got about 1.5 pounds of 80/20 chuck, round about 1/2 pound of bacon. That's pre-cooked weight. This has now been cooked and crumbled, and if you're in the UK, that's streaky bacon. Some sour cream, some Herbs de Provence, homemade blend, sachet of creamy parsley sauce, and about, how much is that? About 1.5 cups of shredded cheddar, which comes in at about just under 1/4 pound, something like that. So, as I mentioned, this burger recipe has been going viral all over the internet. I first saw it on the Gallery Backyard Barbecue channel, and if you haven't seen that channel yet, you really should check it out. Tommy is a master of backyard barbecue. So thanks for introducing us to that, Tommy. I've also seen the Walt twins do it. I've seen Sam the Cooking Guy as well. Sam the Cooking Guy is fantastic. Chud's Barbecue, they've also done it. And several other folks. And they all bring their own unique twist to it, but there seem to be a few constants that we're going to try to adhere to today, whilst bringing our own take to it as well. So for instance, to make the recipe his own, Tommy from the Gallery Backyard Barbecue, he added some blue cheese to his burgers, and then he made smash burgers out of them. So, taking inspiration from that and trying to bring our own twist to this, both through creativity and somewhat through necessity, we're going to be changing one of the staple ingredients and also changing the primary cooking method. Now, the staple ingredients in the Crack Burger that everyone seems to follow are those bacon bits, the shredded cheddar cheese, and the sour cream, with ranch dressing powder. Now, in the UK, it's pretty difficult to get hold of ranch dressing powder. So I had to think about how we might overcome this. And as you may have already gathered, this is the reason for the Herbs de Provence blend and the creamy parsley sauce sachet that we have here. Now, I could have just gone for the Herbs de Provence blend, a couple of tablespoons of that, because the Herbs de Provence blend is somewhat similar in terms of herbal flavours to ranch. However, I believe the basis for ranch dressing is a buttermilk powder. So I'm thinking lactose, I'm thinking sort of creamy mouthfeel and thickening. And I'm sure that's going to have an effect on the burger at the end. So in order to try and make sure we replicate that as truly as possible, we're going with the creamy parsley sauce, because the mention of creamy in there makes me think there's some sort of lactose going on, which will hopefully be not too far away from that ranch dressing flavour once we've added these herbs as well. So a bit of a European twist, if you like. So that's enough of me chatting. Let's get these ingredients together. Let's get some patties made. So the very first thing we're going to do is make our pseudo ranch Herbs de Provence powder dressing. In there with the whole sachet. And as this is a parsley sauce, we have omitted parsley sauce from the Herbs de Provence dressing. I want to put that in with a couple of tablespoons of this herb mix. If you haven't seen how we make this Herbs de Provence mix, I'll make sure I put a link to the video at the end of this video, so stay tuned. Now let's just start adding our ingredients. That's a lot of sour cream. I think these are going to be some quite loose burgers. And then you just want to get messy, get your hands in there. Despite the necessity to make sure all of these ingredients are homogeneously integrated, I am still going to do my best to make sure this beef isn't overworked, just because that's burger law. I've got to say, actually, that's already smelling pretty good. It's not even cooked yet. Maybe that's just me. Maybe I just love the smell of beef. Okay, and with your burger mix made, just shape some burgers. Now, I've seen folks use a burger press to do this, which is absolutely fine. Of course, you can do that if you want to. I'm just going to do it by eye and by hand. I've got £1.5 pounds here. By my thinking, that should make about 6 burgers. I'm going to make them quite thick. You'll see why later. So, when I first started watching these videos on how to make these crack burgers, it occurred to me that they were almost like a return to my youth as a young whizzlet, when I used to think the best way to make burgers was by adding the most things to them. So I'd add minced onions, minced garlic, even some breadcrumbs sometimes, even some tomato paste, you name it, I'd add it in there. And they come out tasting okay, but they were more like meatloaf pucks than actually what you want from a good burger. And as I learned and refined my technique over time, I ended up removing more and more ingredients until the stage where I've got until literally right now, where if I'm making a burger, I just want very good quality beef, best PG, salt, pepper, garlic, and maybe some beef tallow or some sort of oil to cook the burger in, and that's it. The beef should speak for itself. However, having seen these crack burgers, as I say, it seems like a return to my youth. Albeit a somewhat refined return. Let's say we haven't got breadcrumbs or any kind of filler in there. We've got lots of fat, which means lots of flavour. So it's not quite just bulking them out for the sake of bulking them out. They seem to have got a good reception from everyone who's made them so far, so I'm very much looking forward to making them soon. And as I mentioned, I've made them quite thick. And the reason for that is, as well as adding Herbs de Provence instead of ranch, we're also going to be cooking these using a reverse sear technique, which is something I haven't seen done yet, and something I think is actually going to work really well with these burgers. In fact, it works really well with any burgers, but I think getting that temperature control and getting that kiss of smoke on it, giving another dimension of flavour, and take these beyond crack burgers to the next Class A level, which we won't speculate on. Time to fire up the hopper and let it roll until we get that nice blue smoke that we're looking for. And then over to the Masterbuilt controller, where we're going to set this to about 190, just keeping it below that 200 degrees so those burgers have a good long time on a low temperature to build up a good smoke flavour. And then on with these crack burger patties, which I've got to say are looking pretty damn good already. They don't look like any other pate I've seen before. but they look pretty damn tasty. With the burgers on, we want to take them to an ultimate temperature of around 160. It being ground meat, we can't really cook them rare or even medium rare. We want all that meat cooked through, but obviously not overcooked. I know some folks do cook their burgers medium rare, and that's fine. You do you, that's fine. There is a chemical you can get to add to the meat that makes it safe to eat at those lower temperatures, but when it's ground, if you don't add that chemical, my understanding is that there's potential for bacterial contamination. So the safest thing to do is make sure they're cooked to 160. So we've got them in the smoker. They're going to be in there for anything from half an hour to an hour perhaps. Running the smoker really low at 190, which is one of the things I love about the Masterbuilt. You can set it to 190 and it will sit at 190. It will cook that lovely and slowly for you, giving you the perfect reverse sear. We're running it with a little bit of hickory wood, which should give us a lovely little kiss of smoke flavour. And then once they reach about 145, 150, we're going to take them off, and then we're going to move over to the fire pit, and we're going to give them a hot sear, ironically on the Masterbuilt griddle, but that will be over the fire pit rather than being on the Masterbuilt itself. I don't like to run the Masterbuilt too high, just want to prolong its longevity if I can. So I use the Masterbuilt exclusively for smoking, but I use the griddle that came with it for searing over my fire pit. And we'll be running that griddle at 500 plus to get a really good sear on those burgers. And then we'll come back to the taste test. But first of all, let's build a fire. And we're just going to get this fire started with a few scraps of wood wool on some cedar logs there. And that should get it going nicely. And as that wood wool takes, we'll add some kindling. And with some nice bright flames coming from that kindling, we're now going to add some larger logs. We want to get to the stage where we've got some really hot coals in this fire because they're going to hold their heat and sustain that heat while we cook these quite thick burgers all the way through. So it's going to take probably about an hour to an hour and a half to get this fire established and get those hot coals that we're looking for. Okay, and I think we've now got some hot coals in this fire. That's looking pretty good to me. So let's get the grate over and then let's get that griddle on top so that cast iron has got time to get to a really good heat and then hold that heat while we sear those burgers. And now back over to the Masterbuilt to see how those burgers are doing. Now they've been in for an hour now, so whatever the temperature is, I am going to pull them because I think they'll be ready. They'll have picked up enough smoke flavour. And they're not quite as high in temperature as we anticipated. We thought about 140, 145, maybe 150. We're not around that yet. We're looking at 125, 130. Not a problem. They've still been on the smoker long enough to pick up that really decent kiss of hickory smoke. So we're going to take them off and we're going to give them that reverse sear. Just checking the temperature of that griddle now with our laser thermometer, and we're pretty hot. We're 750 in some parts. Normally if I was making smash burgers I'd be okay with this, but because these burgers are quite fat, they're going to want to sit on this griddle for 1, 2, maybe 2.5 to 3 minutes. They're going to need to cook all the way through, and then we will lay those burgers down on those cooler points. And as you can see, the far right hand corner there seems to be one of the cooler points on the griddle. We're looking at about 450 to 500. And then we just pop the cloche over, or in this case the lid to my wok, pop that over to create a steamed environment to ensure those burgers cook all the way through.
cheese, double cheese in this case, and in my opinion it's got to be American. Get that melted. And I think that's looking pretty good. Just time to let these burgers rest now while I quickly toast up these brioche buns. And look at the colour on those. I'd say they're pretty perfect.
Okay, so we smoked those burgers in the Masterbuilt for about an hour, which is brilliant because that gave them ample opportunity to pick up a good amount of that delicious smoke flavour, just to add to all those other fantastic flavours we'd already put in there. Then we set the fire up, we put the Masterbuilt griddle on top, and we gave them a good sear, and as you saw, the heat of that griddle, some places 850, that's too hot. You want to take it down a little bit, because these are quite fat burgers. You want them to sit on that griddle, as I showed you, for about three and a half minutes each side. And during that time, obviously, you don't want them to blacken on the bottom. So it's a bit of a balancing act. Full disclosure, we didn't get it right first time. But with these guys, we got it spot on. Beautiful crisp on the bottom. Probing at 160, just on that 160 mark, which is exactly what we want. Safe to eat, but not anywhere near overcooked. So, without further ado, let's try these crack burgers. Cheers. And just to mention, we're trying these completely unadulterated, not even a shred of lettuce, not even a blob of ketchup. There's so much going on in these burgers that we wanted to try them on their own. The only thing we've added, as you've seen, is some cheese. In my opinion, this should always be American cheese. Swiss is also delicious, but American just tops it for me. You have what you like. You make these burgers the way you want to. So, again, cheers. So straight off the bat, that is an undeniably delicious burger. Very herbal with that Herbs de Provence mix we had in there. There's also a really rich mouthfeel, which I think comes from a combination of that shredded cheddar we put in there, along with that sour cream, and also probably coming from that parsley sauce mix with that lactose that I suspect is in there as well. But you get the crunch of the burger on the outside too. And again, those buns are toasted really nicely, so that offsets that richness quite well. It's not actually as loose or disintegrating as I feared it might be, which is good news. It holds together really well. And again, the crisp of those bacon bits really do come through to contrast with the rich unctuousness of that cheese and that sour cream that works against the beef. If I had a criticism, the beef is a little bit lost. And as I mentioned earlier, since my youth, I've been removing ingredients from burgers till I've pared them right down to their basics. So maybe that's just me. Maybe I'm being pedantic about that. It is a delicious burger. I would definitely make them again. Is it my favourite burger? I don't know. I think I need to make them again and eat them a few times. And yeah, I'm not sure. But it is very good. I do highly recommend that you try them because they are quite different from anything I've ever had, and in a very delicious way. So that's going to about do us for the crack burger. Let us know in the comments what you thought. And let us know if you're going to be trying them out yourself. Maybe add some pictures. You can also find us on Instagram and Facebook. My name's Billy Buick. This is the Pitwood Smoke Shack. And these have been the viral trend that are crack burgers. Thank you very much for watching. Please consider giving us a like and subscribe, and don't forget to hit that notification bell so you never miss one of our videos. And I'm now off to consume the rest of my crack burger, and we'll see you next time. We don't often do a postscript on our cooks. They don't really need it, but I do think in the case of the crack burger, a postscript is warranted. I've just finished the crack burger for lunch. Now, as I mentioned before, delicious burger, really tasty, but I wasn't sure about the crack element, that addictive, must have more quality to it. Well, now normally in the Pitwoods and Smoke Shack, lunch is quite a protracted affair, you might say. I'll sit at my desk usually with whatever food I'm having for lunch, and I'll graze on it. I'll take a bite, and then I'll maybe work on a video or work on some music, and then I'll take another bite, and so on and so forth. And so lunch can take anywhere up to an hour, sometimes a couple of hours, depending on how busy I am. And by the time I'm finished, the food is normally cold. I'm used to that. That's fine. The crack burger was a rather different experience. I ate the whole thing within 5 minutes. The first bite, the first bite which you guys saw, absolutely delicious. But obviously I was filming. I was aware that I had to round up the video. So then I took the burger in and finished it in comfort, not in front of the camera. And it's incredibly Moorish. I can see how I think it's got the name crack burger. It's got a Moorish quality to it, which is perhaps a bit hyperbolic to say addictive, but it's certainly had me reaching for another mouthful within seconds of putting the burger down. And that's quite a unique experience for me with burgers and with food generally, actually, especially when I'm working. I'm quite focused. So, and as if by magic, here's our little video bomber. You all right, Nim? Well, I appreciate the insight. Right. Okay. Enough now. Does that mean it is an addictive substance that we've made? I'll let you be the judge when you make it. Let me know in the comments. Let me know what you think. But that first bite is deceptive. It's delicious, but it's not the whole story. When you keep reaching and going back for another bite, that's when you realize this is where the burger got its name. This is what we're talking about. So the other couple of things I wanted to mention were, first of all, the seasoning. I didn't put any salt or pepper into the mix, as you probably saw, and full disclosure, I did mean to give it a sprinkle of SPG while it was cooking, and I forgot. Now, I've noticed that some folks add salt and pepper into the mix while they're cooking it. In fact, I think Sam, the cooking guy, actually mentioned the fact that the recipe he'd seen omits salt and pepper, but he added it because he felt the burger needed it. So my intention was also to add some. I am quite a salt fiend, so I was fully prepared to add some. I just forgot. Having eaten the burger, my personal opinion is it doesn't need it. Plenty of flavour going on in there, and there's plenty of salt. I think it's coming from the cheddar. I think it's coming from that packet mix of parsley sauce that we used, or the ranch sauce if you're using that. Obviously, you're going to get some saltiness from that bacon as well. I think all those things combined, even for me as a real salt fiend, I felt it didn't need any extra seasoning at all. So that was a happy accident that I actually forgot to add that SPG. The other thing I wanted to mention, again on the subject of flavour, was something that I completely neglected to mention whilst I was doing the taste test. And that is the element of smoke that the reverse sear brought to that burger. When I was doing the taste test, I was tasting a lot of that Herbs de Provence mix that we put in there. I think I mistook that punch of smoke flavour, that big whack of hickory. I think I mistook that for one of the herbs. We are talking about a blend of 8 herbs, and they're not subtle herbs either. We've got fennel in there, there's lavender, there's sage, rosemary. There's some really strong flavours. And whilst they don't battle each other, they certainly very apparent in the burger mix. And so I was thinking that I was tasting one of those herbs, when actually, now having eaten the whole burger and had a chance to ruminate, if you like, on those flavours, one of those big flavours I was tasting was that smack of hickory from that hour-long smoke we gave it. And the fact that we were able to give it an hour in the Masterbuilt, I think completely added to that flavour. I've seen some guys give it 10 minutes. I've seen some guys give it half an hour. An hour is the longest I've seen anyone do it. And obviously I've got the benefit of having a brilliant Masterbuilt, which was able to hold that low temperature for me to make sure it didn't overcook. In fact, the temperature was lower than I expected when we took it off, but I didn't want to leave it any longer than an hour because I'd already built the fire in anticipation of it taking an hour, if you see what I mean. So I didn't want to keep having to add fuel to that fire to keep it going whilst we left the burger to smoke for another hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. We were just going to run out of fuel for the fire. But we could have let it smoke until it got to that 145, 150, as I'd originally anticipated, and got even more of the smoke flavour in there. But as I said, there's a big hit of that flavour anyway, which I should have mentioned earlier. As I said, the reason I didn't was because I mistook it for a herb. So I just thought those extra points were worth mentioning, just to round off the video and just to preemptively answer any questions anybody might have had. But of course, if you've got any further questions, please feel free to ask in the comments. Let me know what you thought, and thanks very much again for watching. I do sincerely appreciate it, and we'll see you next time.